Hey, it's Soul, and we're diving into the blacksmithing profession for the War Within expansion. We're going to cover the basics of leveling the profession and talk up specializations and build ideas while pointing out the cool things that they can make. This is part of the big old oversized profession guide series, which includes the War Within changes and the new mechanics, and you want to make sure that you've watched that first. If this video is useful, please hit the like button and share it with others, subscribe for more WoW coverage, and you can catch me live on Twitch for a chat. Most importantly though, if I missed something or made a really bad error, let me know and I'll make amendments in a sticky comment. Blacksmith, like all the other armor makers, is a strong profession while featuring a robust weapon spec to help out nearly every class. It's also very straightforward from the leveling to specializations. The challenge with this profession really is it's really going to be you choosing the spec that'll make you happy, whether you're motivated by roleplay or progression or gold making. Whatever the case, I'll help you get started right on that path, and our path begins with the leveling. We're first going to push to skill level 25 like we did in Dragonflight, putting focus on crafting the most effective recipes that give bonus skill ups, and earning first craft bonuses of artisan acuity and knowledge. No doubt you can rely on a guide from sites like wowprofessions.com, but it's also easy enough to eyeball your best path to leveling. While I let the B-roll go, we're going to take a brief tour of what we can make. You can see that alloy is a big deal right from the start. It's a base reagent for just about all the blacksmithing recipes, and you're going to be making a lot of it. Early on, these low-level crafted items will be bought, whether it's from people picking up easy gear for their poorly geared characters, or enchanters desperate for anything that'll give them dust. So don't be shy about posting your goods at higher prices if it's very early in the expansion. Learning more recipes means being able to make more items that people want, and also patrons, these NPC crafting orders and the system around it that you can access right away. These will refresh every few days, and you'll want to quickly get into the habit of checking in on these. For now, we're still leveling up the trainer, but we can actually go pretty far. In fact, we're going to blow past skill level 25 and keep going. The only items that you might not be able to make straight away are the profession tools, which ask for a lot of artisan acuity that you might not have yet. Going back to patron orders, the rule of thumb is if you have the recipe and it's not asking for an unreasonable amount of materials, knock it out. If the reward on the side is very cool, that might be enough to use additional materials, but it's up to you. Don't be shy about using your concentration though to complete a craft if it means completing an order. At this early stage, you're not in a position to where you want to save your concentration for much of anything. Off the trainer alone, we're able to get to skill level 65 without using anything more than some ore. So let's assess how we're looking so far. We've used up a little over 350 bismuth, that's the more plentiful ore in this expansion, and 13 or so iron claw ore. We also spent a bit of gold buying some echoing flux, which is needed for crafting ore, and we have 2 spec trees we can immediately learn. At some point, you want to make sure that you take care of all the one-time bonuses to your profession, like first-time crafts and treasures found throughout Khaz-Elgar. Finding and mapping those treasures, it's not really my expertise, so I'm going to remind you to use an add-on like Handy Notes if you're not interested in finding these yourself. By this point, you'll have developed a daily routine to commit to, and that's to check back at your table for new crafting orders from players or patrons, probably patrons. Patron orders act as your slow and steady path to leveling up, as you'll be asked to make all sorts of items and earning rewards in the meantime. Don't worry too much about falling behind because you can't fulfill a certain order. A catch-up system is going to be in place to make sure that you're never that far behind. Following this path will eventually get you to max skill level and give a regular intake of crafting knowledge to up your skill. I'm going to mention this later, but your strategy for patron orders is to use a tool and an enchant that's spec'd for resourcefulness. That'll give the possibility of kind of sort of stealing materials from the NPCs so you can use it on other patron orders that ask for resources or just sell it back on the auction house. So like I said, you'll be here on the regular like it's a mission table, and yes, congrats, the mission table is basically back. The rest of this guide is going to assume knowledge points are readily available on a bi-weekly basis and that you'll never be truly like in a stuck situation like you could be in Dragonflight. So let's jump into specializations. There are 4 trees under blacksmithing in the War Within. Everburning Forge gives us buffs that make us more efficient crafters, and we're going to come back to this later. Means of production covers a lot, from alloysmithing to toolsmithing to creating temporary buffs for weapons or gathering tools. Finally, weapon and armorsmithing are pretty self-explanatory. They're big trees with specializations for all the armor slots and most weapon types. And like before, fully mastering those specs will let you repair your own gear for free. It can feel a little bit scary with so many choices, but don't worry, you and I are going to go through the motions and talk about the possibilities. Let's start with being an armorsmith. So there we go, the choice is made. But now, a new series of choices lay before us. Like, do we want to be a jack of all trades, or do we want to become a master crafter of a certain thing known throughout the realm? There are pros and cons, and we'll make comparisons while reminding ourselves how different crafting in the War Within is from Dragonflight. As an example, I'm going to do my usual thing and go for crafting an epic shield. Speccing for this has been simplified a lot since Dragonflight. We can immediately choose a subspec and then plug in 10 points to learn the epic shield recipe, just like that. It's also a little bit silly because, really, like, will anyone have a crafting spark day one of the expansion? Of course not, and this is for enabling crafters mid-expansion to immediately make cool things, including this shield. But let's come back to where we're at here. Now let's say we want to master this shield and even make it at a mythic level. It's very simple actually. We just need to plug more points into the main and the subspec, and assuming that by this time you've gotten pretty close to maxing out your skill and you have decent tools, you'll have hit the bare minimum to rank 5 this shield, maybe even at a mythic level. It'll totally gut your concentration resource, but hey, minor detail. The point is, you can make it for yourself, or you can monetize that. Here's what's also cool. While we were doing the minimum work to master shields, we also opened up being able to unlock breastplates and greaves too. That's the key to being a master of all armor types. Just invest into the base trait and then the 3 subspecs below it to unlock learning all of the remaining branches. But let's think this through. The War Within has tier sets, meaning maybe a large number of people won't care about crafting the chest or the leg slots. For safety, maybe someone who wants to be a jack of all trades should start on the other end and learn how to make epic belts and bracers and gauntlets, giving them the better odds at making something that people want. But there are embellished boots and a shield that blacksmiths can make that might be desirable. Maybe going down a different direction is the way to go. So the order of what you might want to work on might vary, but becoming a versatile crafter is very accessible. The drawback, as stated though, the massive concentration costs are going to hold you back if you're the type who wants to be like on all day, crafting and barking in trade chat. But if you're crafting for yourself and a few buddies or even your guild, this makes you very flexible. It also opens you up for taking on any of the patron orders to improve your skills more consistently. I haven't noticed any of these orders asking for rank 5, so at least you'll be a master at pleasing the NPCs. Let's go back to this shield though, and now let's become the best in the realm at making this, and by best I mean people can come at us with the right parts of course, and we can make this shield all day without spending any concentration at all. That's going to be possible by jamming this last trait full of points, and ta-da, we are now masters of this craft. The takeaway you'll come to again and again throughout this and all the other profession videos is being able to make good crafts is just much easier in the War Within, and it doesn't require a deep investment because you can just shortcut your way to maximum quality through concentration. There's no RNG or guesswork needed. If you can make a rank 4 passively, it can be a rank 5 with concentration. It's just a question of whether you want to continue mastering your craft to let yourself do this again and again within a shorter period of time. Now, if that's not too important, cool, you can move on and start mastering something else. Under weaponsmithing, the principles of armorsmithing pretty closely apply. The investment shown here will let you learn how to make weapons at a mythic level, but will require max quality materials and, again, a very high concentration cost. Multiple weapons can be learned under the bottom traits, so if you're seeking out a certain weapon, it also means you'll be able to make that weapon even more efficiently. Take a look at the diagram here to see which specs make what weapon types so you can plan, or maybe panic. There's also one embellished dagger that one might be interested in. Overall, mastering weapons is a much shorter path to full mastery compared to armorsmithing. Now let's take a look at means of production, which is the way to go if you want a very straightforward playstyle that mostly plays not the crafting order system but the auction house. It's actually not a bad route to take for your first specialization. Not everyone needs a shield or a pair of boots, but everyone who does want them will need to provide good materials. While some players will be racing to be like the best armor or weaponsmiths in all the land, you're going to be providing the high quality materials that all clients need. High quality alloy is as difficult to make as high level gear. An armor or a weaponsmith only needs to use their concentration once to make an awesome piece of gear, but those recipes will call for like 10 or 20 pieces of alloy, and early on that's going to be really hard to come by. The path to development is pretty clear. You just gotta plug points in and move over to the right to specialize in alloysmithing. You can almost immediately start crafting max quality materials to maybe turn a profit, but you'll quickly run out of gas. You'll want to fully max out these 3 traits here. In the meantime, you can also learn tools of the trade so you can easily learn how to make a better blacksmithing hammer and maybe make them for others too. And you'll want to look around for a leather worker to make you an apron. The total skill added by profession equipment is 40 points. That's pretty big, and it's much more important as an alloy crafter to max out skill levels and reduce concentration costs as much as possible. A master alloysmith is going to be in a pretty interesting position. They'll be able to eyeball the market of rank 3 ore, and if the prices are good, turn that ore into rank 3 alloy with impunity for very easy profit. We don't know how the supply of gathered materials is going to look until maybe a few weeks after launch, but it's possible that early into the season, the demand for rank 3 alloy is going to be so high that the supply of rank 3 ore will be very stressed and cause prices to skyrocket. Meanwhile, the master alloysmith would still be able to craft some rank 3 alloy using only rank 2, maybe even rank 1 ore, so it's going to be pretty interesting. What's a little bit less interesting though, unfortunately, are the other specs in this tree. Frameworks can be picked up to make better finishing reagents. Now mathematically they're a good idea to use for high volume crafting and maybe when you're trying to super min-max, but early on I don't think finishing reagents are very useful, and personally I'd rather wait for later in the expansion to use them, let alone invest into this trait. Tool enhancements are a bit more attractive though. These are going to be hot commodities for gatherers, the drawback being the long duration of these buffs that ensures only a slow if steady rate of purchase, and weapon stones, they're okay. You just want to be aware that weapon oils are also back and they don't stack together. I'm no simmer, but someone's going to end up deciding whether to use oils or weapon stones for their weapons. Going into toolsmithing sounds like a good idea at first. It certainly was in Dragonflight because crafters wanted to get their hands on, well, as much inspiration as they could. But for the start of the expansion, I'm less sure that customizing the stats is like a higher priority than just maxing out tools for the skill points. But the notable exception here would be gatherers. They're going to want the right stats right away and will compromise nothing for it, including hopefully their gold. There's also a heavy investment of artisan acuity involved because many tool recipes are learned through the Artisan Consortium vendor. There's no rep requirement, fortunately, but you will be working hard at farming up acuity. Like I mentioned before, gatherers care about tools a bit more than crafters, so focus on getting those recipes first. Speccing into tools is very easy. We accidentally did it while speccing for alloysmithing. If we're starting from scratch, we just go left, starting with putting 10 points into tools of the trade so we can customize the crafting stat on the main tool. From here, it's kind of a toss-up. Like, maybe we should just leave this be and let concentration take this to a rank 5, but it depends on how high the demand for tools is at this point. Long term though, definitely max this out fully to make the most out of your stats. And now for the last tree. Everburning Forge is a very cool buff, but I'm only going to recommend folks invest into this tree when they're at a certain point. Now think of it like this: if you plan on being a great alloysmith and you've reached that goal and crafting orders outside of NPCs isn't really your thing, then you want to pick this up to be even better at making alloy. This tree is for the fine-tuning of your already almost finished specialization. Speccing here lets us produce an Everburning Ignition. It's a temporary buff that gives us bonus resourcefulness, ingenuity, and multicraft, but not skill level. Plugging points into the main spec gives us passive bonuses to all of these stats, while the subspecs increase the bonus of the Everburning Forge buff. At a certain point, it's going to be a given that whenever you craft, you'll want this buff activated, along with optimized tools and maybe a crafting file. When prioritizing into the subspecs, you want to prioritize the stat that has most to do with your playstyle. So if you're an alloysmith, choose multicraft. If you play fairly casually, choose resourcefulness. And if you're a mythic kind of crafter or you otherwise rely on ingenuity, then choose ingenuity. And as your needs shift, you fill out the rest of the tree. Now that we've gone through the spec possibilities, I want to try and summarize and give some extra tips. Your first 100 or so spec points are going to be very important, as that's going to let you either fully master a single craft like tools, or let you spec wide in a tree like armorsmithing. There are no bad choices here except to change that choice midway. In the first section, I talked about using the trainer to level up to skill level 65, but you can actually skill all the way up to 85 by crafting weapon stones and using an item called leyline residue. It's a rare reagent found by herbalists, and we can't be sure about its rarity until launch, but it's a way to grind for a few more skill points. That way, at most, you'll need to fulfill 5 epic crafting orders from either a player or a patron to reach max skill. I mentioned this earlier, but out of the profession tools, the tools for gatherers are going to be probably the most desired because they will be super hard at work at collecting materials to keep the economy going. Meanwhile, crafters will be able to use concentration to make up for their shortcomings. There's a special profession bag tailors can make to support every profession, including blacksmiths. The ignition satchel will grant a bonus 10 ingenuity, resourcefulness, and multicraft, so it's something like 1%. It's not bad, but it's probably not worth racing to pick up. If you've been following this guide, you won't even be expected to use this ability for a while, but later, definitely pick this up. Racial bonuses do play a part in your specializing. A bonus of 3 to 5 skill points means you don't have to invest 3 to 5 skill points in a given specialization. In the case of, say, armorsmithing, you can skip out on 5 points at the end of every end node for savings at the cost of not being able to repair your gear. But keep in mind, some trades, many trades actually, include big bonuses at the end of their track, and the racial bonus won't be as effective. As reassurance though, a certain race doesn't have a definitive advantage to crafting that no other races can make up for. You might be interested in making multiple profession tools to suit your situation, and here's some examples. For patron crafting orders, choose double resourcefulness as both the stat and the enchant so you can get some materials back. For consumables, including alloy, run multicraft and resourcefulness to get the best return. When using a significant amount of concentration, which is probably for high-level crafts, and you want to keep crafting, run double ingenuity and also use the file of concentrated ingenuity for an extra boost. But if you don't care to do prolonged crafting, switch back to double resourcefulness. Solo players will probably catch themselves running resourcefulness most of the time. With that sort of player profile, they're likely going to benefit the most out of getting some of their materials back as if it's sort of a discount, not to mention how useful that tool combo is for patron orders. I'm kind of tucking this in the back here, but let's take a closer look at the embellished gear. The 3 that we're starting off with in the War Within all fall under different spec paths, and learning more about them will help you decide if they're worth specializing for. Belladar's Bulwark is a crit verse shield with an additional versatility proc that can be shared with a party member. The recipe for this is earned somewhere in the Dawnbreaker dungeon. It's not my favorite stat, but it's pretty formidable. Sanctified Steps is learned from a recipe that's a world drop and has some tanky properties. It increases the wearer's haste when taking damage, and at max stacks, their next ability explodes for damage. It's not bad, although it sort of sucks if I end up making it fire off when I don't want it to. I am interested in that 2000 or so speed rating though. Finally, the Siphoning Stiletto is a dagger whose recipe drops from the Season 1 raid. It's a BoE recipe, so everyone can eventually get it, and I'm guessing the recipe's behavior will be similar to that of Dragonflight. It drops off all difficulties, and even if we miss it this season, it'll have a chance to drop from future seasons. This one seems neat, with a proc that drains the user's health but inflicts random damage to a nearby enemy. I hate to see it proc on some wimpy no-name spider, but this seems like a pretty cool dagger. If nothing else, these recipes are worth picking up in case folks want them made or if they show up on patron orders. I think I covered just about everything I could, but if you have questions or if there's something that I goofed on, let me know in the comments. I look at them all, at least the ones that don't get auto-modded. I hope this guide helped, and if so, hit the like button and share this with friends. Subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.